Everybody, this is Frank, and this is another episode of For the Old Breed. And this one I'm doing by myself because I wanted to talk to you guys about men's issues, the stuff that I want to. The reason why I started this bear, please go over there. The reason why I started this podcast is because as an older man, I'm 47 years old, and I'm always trying to better myself. I'm always trying to learn something something new, just like anybody else. So I've had some guests that are jiu-jitsu guys, Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys. I had my son. I had Professor Brent Hamilton. I had Humberto, both veterans, both combat veterans. And today I had another Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner, Rodney Wells. And the reason why I wanted to put these guys on is because I wanted you guys to see, especially young men today that are lost, that are looking for answers, and they're going online, and man, just some of the stuff that I see online, it just it kind of shocks me, because they're so, in my opinion, I believe that they're off. They're off, and it comes off as very manipulative. And I'm thinking, as a young guy, you're seeing these things, and you're like, is this right or is this wrong? And I'm gonna leave that, up to you guys. But the only thing that I can tell you is the main reason why I started this podcast is because I remember being a young man, and I remember being lost. And I remember being lost because I didn't have a father figure. I was looking for a father figure my whole life. And I never really, I don't think I really, found it. I didn't really find it till I joined the Army. For me, this is my experience. So, and I actually joined the Army quite late in life. I was like 31, 32. I enlisted when I was 31. And then I had to go through some stuff with to get in, because I have a permanent pin in my hand, so it took about a year, but I finally got in. And went to basic training at Fort Benning, Georgia, here in Georgia. And man, it was an experience. It really was. This was during, I think, 2007. And I was able to get in because at the time they were needing bodies. And honestly, man, I didn't have a GED. I was just like, I was a small business owner. I had just started a printing business. So, with 9/11, I decided to enlist. And I enlisted. I went in, and like I said, I was just like any recruit, man. It's kind of like it's kind of like a shock to your senses, because you're whatever, you're getting yelled at all the time. You're getting smoked, as far as like getting PT'd, like physical training constantly, lots of running, lots of marching. And of course, in a time of war, because it was, that was why I enlisted. I was like, it's, dude, it may sound corny, but it was like, you hear the call, your country's calling you. So, and I wasn't I wasn't even born here. I was I was an immigrant, man. I was an immigrant. I never really thought about it. I never thought about I never thought about that. I mean, when I was younger, we had a Desert Storm, the Gulf War, and I mean, I was so young and so naive that I just didn't really pay attention to it. I mean, I knew a couple of people that were there, a couple of reservists that I worked with, but man, I knew nothing about conflict. I mean, I'd seen stuff on television, but I was so young and ignorant that I just didn't really know anything. so so when obviously after 9/11, man, it was just like, it was shocking, and I was just seeing people enlist, and I was like, man, I was thinking, man, I'm gonna miss this war if I don't do this. If I don't do it, I'm gonna miss the whole entire war. So I enlisted, and in 2007, I went to, like I said, Fort Benning, Georgia, which is, I don't know if you guys know, that's the home of the infantry. So if you want to be a soldier, if you want to be an infantryman, that's where you go. You do your 9 weeks of basic training, and then you do like 4 to 5 weeks of AIT. It's like, basic, it's infantry school, So it's about 14 and a half weeks. But like I was saying, man, when I got there were already like 3 or 4 people that they just didn't want to be there. They were like, there was, I think, a guy that tried jumping out of a window. He was like, I don't know, like, obviously he had some mental problems. And we had a couple of AWOLs. And just people just went loony, man, because like I said, it's a shock to the system, man. It's a shock to the system, because you're like, you get all, I don't know, man. You become very idealistic, at least for me, but eager to get there. And once I got there, and the first day of just being around Fort Benning, man, I was like, did I make a mistake? I think I've made a big mistake. I really thought that in my mind. But just like with everything, as time went on, you adjust. You adjust to getting yelled at. You adjust to doing physical, anything physical. You're doing it at Benning all the time. Push-ups all the time, flutter kicks all the time. You name it. And at the time, I can only tell you from my time over there, man, we had a couple of guys that had already been over there. The head drill instructor, I'll never forget this man, was Drill Sergeant Suarez, and he'd been to Afghanistan. He was in Operation Anaconda. And there were a couple of other drill sergeants that had just gotten back. I think one of them had actually gotten blown up and taken some shrapnel to his back. So he was insane. I thought he was going to kill somebody. I really did. Just insane. But yeah, man, those guys were mean. They were mean as shit. But what worried me the most was being 32 and man, I thought I was going to get hurt, man. I was like seeing younger guys, whatever, man, pulling stuff, breaking legs, or shin splints. I mean, you name it. You get all sorts of stuff because it's just heavy physical training, and I was like, man, if these guys are falling out, I'm 32. I'm like the oldest guy there. I think I was actually even older than most of the drill sergeants, so I was like, man, if I get hurt, am I ever going to get out of this place? That's what I thought, man. Because, if you get hurt, you just get held over till you heal up. They may send you home. I don't know. I wasn't, about to find out. So I was like, dude, let me just try to hide and not get hurt, And listen, man, I'm an average sized guy. I'm just a regular guy, you know what I'm saying? But what I did have was, I'd been training, I've been doing jiu-jitsu, man. This is during like the Hoist Gracie time, I was doing it here in Atlanta. I used to go to the Atlanta Judo Academy because I could get a little roll time, and I would go to a few other schools, but there wasn't anything really around, you know. So I just went where I could. And then once schools started to come in, like Alliance, it was too expensive, man. I was a young guy. I had 2 kids. I had like 2 or 3 jobs. I was, man, barely making it. It was tough, man. Just a lot of tough times. So that's what saved my butt, man. Because they were doing Army combatives and basic, man. And like I said, I was just killing everybody. And it was very basic at the time, guys. It wasn't anything. I wasn't any fucking rock star. I was whatever. I knew some missions. I knew a lot of arm bars and obviously the chokes. I knew a few good chokes. So I was kind of ahead of the game. So once we started doing combatives, man, I was choking people out or putting whatever, I actually got like some sort of credibility, which if I were to be honest with you, man, I was just like, man, I was just happy to be able to make it through, man. That was my one concern. It was like, man, I just don't want to get hurt, man. So, you know, perception is everything, but whatever, man, just to kind of fast forward. So whatever, you know, I graduated from Fort Benning, did my 14 and a half weeks, and then I was basically voluntold to become an 11 Charlie. So in the Army you have like, you know, 11 series, you know, 11 Alpha, which is infantry. Anything 11 series is combat arms, is, you know, infantry. So 11 Alpha, 11 Bravo, 11 Charlie. So I graduated as an 11 Bravo, which is just your standard basic rifleman. And once I got to my unit, they were like, "Hey man, we need mortarmen." So basically, I was like voluntold. You know, I was like, "Yeah, Roger, you're going to the school." And never seen mortars. I mean, I'd heard of them, but I was like, I didn't know what it was. I really did not know what they were. So went to mortar school and became an 11 Charlie. So basically, you know, I became a mortarman. So I was trained to shoot 60, 81, and 120 millimeter mortars. Mainly 81s and 120s. Not so many. I mean, I've shot plenty of 60s, but you know, when I was deployed, that's what we shot. We shot 81s and 120s. 120s in combat for sure. We hung a lot of 120s. So, you know, went to Afghanistan in 2009 and 2010. The 48th Combat Brigade. It's a National Guard unit here. And those guys had just gotten back from Iraq, man. I think it was a year later that they got back, the 48th. And they were attached to 3rd ID, which is 3rd Infantry Division. Yeah, man, 2009, 2010, I was in Afghanistan as a mortarman. And basically, we moved around from cop to cop. You know, so, I don't know, Camp Clark, Sharana, Salerno, Sparrow Cop, I mean, Clark, Lightning, you know, in Gardez, Paktia Province, like, in just moving around a lot, you know. And whatever, man, had some you know, some combat. I took lots of 82 millimeter mortar rounds, so it was kind of like back and forth. But you know, the whole thing is that, you know, like, people always want to hear about the combat, but they don't want to hear about, you know, just the regular stuff, man. Like the people you meet, the soldiers that you're with, you know, the training that goes into it before you're even deployed. Because I enlisted in Like I said, 2006, graduated basic, but we didn't deploy till 2009. So that whole time, man, we're fucking training, man. We're training all the time, you know, all the time. As a matter of fact, when I was in 11 Charlie and I graduated 11 Charlie school, man, I barely graduated, and I didn't even want to, like, even have nothing to do with the system, man. I thought I was just gonna be a gun bunny, like an ammo bitch. That's what we call them, you know. So basically, be the guy that's just handing out the rounds to the assistant gunner, you know, and then the assistant gunner, he hangs it because, you know, on a mortar it's your deflection elevation, you know. So you have a gunner who's bubbling, but he's whatever, man. It's just mortar stuff, and I don't want to get too in depth with it, but it's you have a gunner and an assistant gunner. So the gunner looks at the sight, gets the bubbles up, and then you have your assistant gunner who hangs the rounds, and then you have your ammo bitch. This guy, I would have been, but you know, the more training that we did, the more I got used to the system, man. So I went from ammo bitch to assistant gunner, and then from assistant gunner to gunner, because you're doing it all the time. So it's like you're no longer intimidated by the system, man, because it's like second nature, man. You know, you're just getting that gun up, and you're just, you know, whatever, hanging rounds, and it just becomes like nature, man. It's just quick. But man, we shot thousands and thousands of rounds. So by the time you get to Afghanistan, man, you know, it's like you've been training for so long that it's like second nature. Everything is second nature. But like I said, man, just many cold nights, many different cops all over Afghanistan. I think the smallest cop that we were in was Spera cop. I think it was like 12 American, and I think it was a platoon size element of ANA, maybe more, man. Maybe it was like 2 platoons, which is like 60 dudes, something like that. Maybe a company, I don't really know, man. You can never really keep count. And we had so many guys that would desert, you know, because they wouldn't pay them and whatever, man. There was always a problem, you know. The ANA is the Afghan National Army. And they're poorly educated, poorly trained, crappy equipment. I mean, you name it, man. They're staying in shitholes, basically, and it's bad, man. It's really bad for them. It's hard to get them motivated, you know. So whatever, man. The whole experience was eye-opening. You know, it was really eye-opening. So whatever, man. I did that tour, and then I got back, and 2010. And just like many other veterans, I was like kind of lost. I didn't know what to do, and I think I went to a couple of schools, man, and I was actually able to I volunteered with the 45th Combat Brigade out of Oklahoma. It's the Oklahoma National Guard out of Oklahoma. Obviously, the 45th Combat Brigade. You guys should look into them. They're pretty famous Army unit, man. I'm pretty sure they were in the invasion, man. And man, I met some really cool dudes over there, man. Like, I would say the guys that I call my brothers, man, they're all in Oklahoma, you know, you know, my brother Jennings, Rabbit, fucking Jackson, Watson, Coral, Logan, Lindsay, First Sergeant Jones, man, just a bunch of damn good guys, man. And the same thing over there, man. We did a lot of patrols, a lot of dismount patrols. We did a couple of BDAs, which is like a battle damage assessment when you go in and, you know, you take pictures of like you know, like the dead bodies and whatnot, and just doing patrols, man. I was a driver and I was a gunner, and whatever, man, many missions, and just basically, man, that tour was, man, it was fun, man. We did a lot of stuff too, man. We moved around a lot. We started at Bagram Airfield, and we started doing a lot of patrols outside of the wire. So doing the outside perimeter of Bagram and pushing out, you know, I don't know, 5 to 10, 20, 30 miles, and then we started to push out even further into Logman province up north. And yeah, man, that was an exciting tour, man. Exciting tour. Did a mission. We spent 9 days in the mountains. We stayed out all the time, man. But that one was, I'd say that one was really memorable because we basically landed in a Chinook in the middle of the night, and it was kind of like World War II type stuff, because we built like fighting positions, and man, it was legit. It was a lot of I got a lot of good experience from that, man. That was another eye-opening, you know, experience that I had in my life, man, that just toughened me up a lot, you know, because being in those mountains, man, I tell you what, man, those mountains are no joke. It's just cold, man, really cold. It really makes you think about life. When you're in that fighting position, you think about your life. You think about, am I gonna get up the next morning? Really, you know. And then when you do wake up after, well, if you can call it sleeping, because you're freezing your ass off all night in a fighting position, you wake up, and I can't really describe the feeling of like, wow, like I'm alive, another day. And the third night that we were there, we got attacked. We got attacked with like RPG and small arms, and I just remember being in my fighting position and just opening my eyes and just hearing that, which were RPGs. And me getting up, man, and we were in this fighting position. There was like 5 of us. And we were getting fucked up. I mean, we were taking a lot of fire. And what made it worse was the ANA were covering their sector behind us, so they're only allowed to fire towards their direction. But I think they freaked out, man, because they basically completely turned the gun to our fighting position because we were taking fire from that direction. And they started shooting the machine gun. So we were basically taking fire from the enemy, and we were taking fire from the ANA. So we're getting lit up from both sides, man. And that stuff, man, it's not like the movies, man. It's not like the movies. It's I just remember having a conversation with my friends, and we were like, man, we're getting fucked up, man. Like what the fuck? You know, like seriously, like that's what I was thinking, you know. I'm not trying to be like dramatic, or we were just like, wow. And I remember taking my M4, man. I must have fired like 5-7 rounds, but it was so far, man. They were firing from so far. I was like, man, this is a waste of time. We were watching the enemy fire at us. And I remember Shwedi, man. He was an NCO. I was just a specialist. I remember Shwedi said, man, get the gun up, man. Get the gun up. And I remember Jackson getting the saw. He got the saw up, and I got right on top of Jackson, man, and he started firing the saw, man, and he was firing too high. So just like we've done many, many times, man, I was like, dude, you're firing too high. Bring it down. Something to that effect. And he adjusted fire, and we did that a few times. We weren't taking fire from the enemy, so we stopped. But I just remember, man, how fast it was that it wasn't us, it was the training. And obviously it was Shweddy. Man, Shweddy took action, was like, dude, get the gun up. So that's what we did, man, from training, you know. So it's, you know, everybody likes to say, you know, that muscle memory. And that's exactly what it was, man, because it was so natural, you know, it felt so natural. But whatever, man, it was fucking all hell, man. It was just like explosions and all kinds of stuff. Whatever, man. I'm not gonna what, you know, how do you describe that? You know, how do you do that, man? And this is from, like, you know, days, you know, because you hear fucking concussions and explosions, and you're just like, whatever, man. You, at this point, you've just gotten so used to it that it just doesn't really affect you, you know. But whatever, man. Nonetheless, my point is that, man, it just made me grow up, man. It just seeing that stuff, man, it changes you, you know. So I wanted to sort of just let you guys know where I'm coming from, you know, because, you know, I came home and did what everybody else does, you know, went out, whatever, drinking, but I just didn't know where to go, man. I didn't know what to do, you know. I was having my own issues because I just didn't feel like I had maybe guidance, or maybe I felt like I lost it, man. Maybe I felt like I lost guidance, or I didn't know where I was going, you know. But the reason why I decided to do this podcast was for you young guys out there, man. You guys that are lost out there, you know, because like I said, my whole point to this whole story is that I'm 47 years old, and I'm looking for answers. I'm still looking for answers, you know. And I've lived a life already, you know. Like I said, I'm 47, man. I've you know, I've started a business. I was in the Army for 11 years. And I'm still, you know, I'm still looking for answers. I'm still trying to be a better man. I'm trying to, you know. And as I like to tell all my veteran buddies, man, I always feel like I owe it to all the guys that didn't make it back, man. I owe it to them to try to be a better man, to try to be an honorable man, you know. So I was going online just like any other person and was looking at all this Manosphere stuff, and there was some good information in there. I mean, I'm not gonna say it was all bad, man, but some of that stuff, man, I was like, this is some BS, man, you know. Or at least it's just not the way I see it, you know. It really isn't, you know. And I'm from a different generation too, but like I said, man, I'm only going by me being a young guy, not having anybody to be like, hey man, you're not doing this right, you know, or you shouldn't do that, or, you know, just somebody to give me advice, you know, because I didn't grow up with a dad. I grew up with an older brother, but man, he was just as lost as I was. I mean, he helped me out a lot, but man, he was still lost, man. He didn't know. He didn't have a dad, you know. So now I look at my life now, and I look at all this stuff on, like, you know, Red Pill, and I don't even care, man. Whatever, all this stuff, and I listen to it, and like I said, it's not all bad, but some of it is just absolutely absurd. I mean, it doesn't fit, you know. It doesn't fit. And I can only tell you from my experience, you know, from the leaders that I had in the Army. And listen, I had some good leaders, I had some bad leaders. But the good leaders, man, I learned so much, man. Because I'll tell you what, man, what I learned in the Army is, man, you got to be able to take ownership when you're ate up. You know, when you've messed up, you have to say to yourself, and you have to say to other people, you know what, I was wrong. I was wrong. And it's hard, man. It's hard to say that you're wrong. It's hard to admit it. But I'm telling you, it makes a better man. It makes you a better person, man. When you can say to yourself, you know what, I'm fucked up. Or it was my fault. Or I'll take it. I'll take the heat. right? It's so much easier. It's so much easier to place blame, to put it on somebody else, right? I saw that in the army too, man. Trust me. I saw that and I didn't like it. So now I see it here. Now I'm in the civilian world. And like I said, just because I'm out doesn't mean that I'm not trying to better myself as a man. I'm always trying to better myself. You know? And I have my issues just like everybody else. You know, that's why I've had my guest on talking about PTSD, because I don't know what you want to call it. I don't care what you call it. You go over there and you come back and you're not the same. That's it. That's all that I can say about it. I don't spend time feeling sorry for myself. You know, it is what it is. You can call it what you want to call it. You know, I went to the VA. I talked to some clinical psychologist, and they can think what they want to think. I can only tell them what I went through, what I lived through, and it's definitely it's definitely life changing. Hold on one second.